the show. We are back with another episode of the Ferris Wheel Classic Rock Show. A big thanks for your emails, suggestions, and your support on our social media platforms. Continue to email us at theferriswheelshow@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and now TikTok. Listen to a new show every week. Just tune in each Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. New York City time on Cap City Beats, located at www.capcitybeats.ca. Okay, buckle up for some serious rock talk. A man to the right of me who's not a big fan of La Moisie in any form or fashion.
Stephen Wheeler.
And a man to the left of me who hung out and had many benders with Dom DeLuise.
To the Dahmer, of course I did.
Your name, sir?
Dr. Ian Clarke.
And I'm Kennedy.
So you think today, but you never know.
So, gentlemen, it's
Yes.
good to see each other again.
Good to see you.
In our studios. Ian, I think you're kind of excited
Well,
today for the topic.
I am excited. Besides, I came in a wet Speedo and that's it. But besides that, I'm sitting on plastic, so it would be fun getting up. I'm going to get funky today, and I'm going to put a proposition out there that pop music is not rock music, and rock is definitely not pop. So to throw some light on it and stir up the dust, I say the Beatles are about 80% pop and 20% rock. Stones would have opposite percentages. Derek and the Dominoes is a rock band. Eric Carmen and the Raspberries is a pop band. Foghat is a rock band. Carole King is not a rocker. By the way, everyone that I just mentioned can be found on the playlist of classic rock stations everywhere. I kid you not. So keep the notions of rock and pop in your frontal lobes. Let's move on to today's subject. Raise your hand out in podcast land if you have ever heard of the 1960s band The Monkees. I can see most of you have. Let's take it a step further. The Monkees, are they pop or are they rock? Sure, they're pure pop for now people, as who was it, Nick Lowe once said. Should the Monkees be played on classic rock stations?
No.
Why not? Why not? What about Stevie Wonder?
No.
Sonny and Cher?
No.
Sly and the Family Stone?
It's funk, soul,
Hey,
Motown.
what about the Supremes?
No.
What do the Supremes have in common with Leonard Skinner, besides the fact that they're both in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Phil Spector produced them.
No, he didn't produce Leonard Skinner. He didn't have much to do with
No,
that.
he did the Supremes, though, right?
Yeah.
No.
No?
No. Who did
That's-
this?
Well, Barry Gordy did a lot
Oh,
of
yeah,
it.
that's true.
Oh, I'm thinking of the Ronettes. Never mind.
Yeah.
You know what? Folks, I'm trying to do two things. One, create a legitimate case for the Monkees to be considered as the classic rock act, as if to say, let's look at precedent, as we would if this was a court of law, and let's look at who routinely is considered classic rock. The second point, and this is where the fur flies, is the question, is the Monkees a legitimate band? My opinion, yes, they are, and I hope to prove it. Oh, here we go. When the question of legitimacy comes up, critics typically point to the group's origin. Let's look at it. They were conceived in 1965 by television producers Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider, specifically for a situation comedy series called The Monkees that went from 66 to 68. And the band's music was initially supervised by Don Kirshner. Don Kirshner, for those who love classic rock and know the name Don Kirshner, especially in the 70s with a TV show, I think it was called Don Kirshner's Rock Concert. So yeah, I was Don Kirshner. The Beatles film A Hard Day's Night inspired Rafelson and Schneider to revive Rafelson's ideas for the Monkees, for the Monkees TV show that he had in 1962. In 1962, the Beatles were still in Hamburg pretty well. This guy, so this predates the Beatles. So there's some validity there. He sold the idea to Screen Gems in 65. Originally, he wanted the Love and Spoonful. You remember John Sebastian from the Woodstock movie. He wanted Love and Spoonful to be these guys, but Sebastian had signed with a record label and couldn't go. So he recruited three Americans, Mickey Dolenz, Mike Nesmith, and Peter Tork, and a British, an actor-singer, Davey Jones. He was an English guy. And he'd been in the original stage production of Oliver. There's a bit of trivia. So how did they find these guys? Well, Davy Jones was already signed with Screen Gems. 1965, September 8th, they put an ad in the Hollywood Reporter. It's very famous now, and this is the ad. Madness, auditions, folk and roll musicians, singers for acting roles in a new TV series. Running parts for 4 insane boys, aged 17 to 21, want spirited Ben Franks types. Have courage to work, must come down for interview. Ben Franks was a kind of a really hip restaurant in West Hollywood. It can't be there anymore. This goes back a long time. So they're looking for hip kids. Actually, I hope this mic's working okay, because I'm sensing I hear some music leaking in through this sound installation we had done recently.
Hello.
And now it's time for Ian's Knock, a little segment we like to call Affairs with Watcher, where Ian himself will rant and rave on books, reviews, musicians, artists, people, or whatever just does not go his way that day. Who knows? You might be on Ian's Knock, 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 Knock.
Today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about lists. And as those dedicated listeners to this show know that we have a love-hate relationship with lists. And I finally found peace. I've come to peace with these I can't use profanity, but these damn lists. A lot of people in the arts are hostile to them. Usually they're created for money, like any Academy Awards, the Grammys, Tonys. These are lists of people who win things, and that's why they do it for the industry. But they can go too far. I will give an example of this. I'm going to talk about 21 bands that were were compiled to be the worst bands, the most hated bands of all time, and 21 bands that are the most loved of all time. And there is one band, one of my favorites, appears on both lists. So what I'm trying to demonstrate is they're both trivial and they're interesting. So the first one comes to us. This is the most hated bands of all time from Best Life, bestlifeonline.com. And they got this from compiling lists, from some message boards, and some articles. So remember, this is as meaningful as candy floss, but it's fun. So here we go. 21 down. 21, Linkin Park. 20, Spin Doctors. 19, Nirvana. 18, Rush. 17, Pearl Jam. 16, Oasis. 15, Korn. 14, Metallica. 13, The Doors. 12, Green Day. 11, Coldplay. 10, Dave Matthews Band. 9, Kiss. 8, Radiohead. 7, Fish. 6, Bob Dylan. 5, Mumford & Sons. 4, U2. 3, Creed. 2, Limp Bizkit. And number 1, Nickelback. That's right, Nickelback. So none of these. So I'm going to cleanse the palate by going to rateyourmusic.com with the 21 most loved bands. Here we go. At number 21, Aerosmith. Number 20, Cream. I don't know how they got that. Number 19, Boston. Really. 18, Fleetwood Mac. 17, The Moody Blues. 16, Jefferson Airplane. That's interesting. 15, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. 14, The Beach Boys. 13, Eric Clapton. 12, The Police. 11, AC/DC. 10, Queen. 9, Grateful Dead. 8, Jimi Hendrix. Eagles is number 7. The Doors, that's the repeat group from the most hated, are at number 6. 5 is Pink Floyd. 4 is The Who. 3 is Led Zeppelin. 2 is the Rolling Stones. And number 1 is...
the Beatles?
I guess the Beatles, yeah.
Now, who wrote this list? Barry Manilow?
Incredible. Anyway, so my point here, ladies and germs, is that it's goofy fun. It stimulates conversations like the ones we have on the podcast. Make up your own list. There are millions of them online. So, in closing, don't be afraid of them. Don't take them seriously. Just have fun.
You know what's funny is that people always like to diss Nickelback for some apparent reason. And they've outsold probably more albums than a lot of those bands on the list.
Yeah.
That list of hatred, a lot of them are grunge, a lot of them are indie. Korn is kind of metal. I don't know how they got on there.
I guess they're just, it's not class. It's just, it would be bands that are, listeners would, I don't know, answer a survey that they hated. Something like that.
Like
Or a foot condition.
Like
Or a foot condition.
Mumford and Sons, they're decent. They haven't really done that. They would do, what, 3 albums?
I wouldn't call them a rock band.
But yeah, they're more indie or this, what do you want to call it? Alt country, alt folk? Is that even something?
Yeah, I mean, listen,
Something
Bob
like that,
Dylan's on that. Really, Bob Dylan's in rock and roll.
I consider him folk.
If anything, folk rock maybe. So no, I think the idea is they're just having fun and it stimulates conversations. You know what I mean? But lists, you know.
I'm glad they put Rush on there, though. I really do. I would switch Rush and Nickelback. I put Rush on number 1 as being the most. What is it? What did it say? Hated?
The most hated.
Oh, not in Canada. God forbid you insult Rush.
In Canada, I think they have a church named after them now. The Church of Rush, and Geddy Lee presides. But it stimulates conversation. But anyway, we'll go back to the Monkees. Oh, there's trivia here. I call it trivia break. Bob Rafelson, Bert Schneider went on to produce the film Easy Rider, the ultimate hippie counterculture film, and they used monkey money to do it. So no Monkees, no Easy Rider. Talk about legitimacy. Can you imagine how much cred a band like Paul Revere and the Raiders would have had they funded Easy Rider? Anyway, that's perspective. The Monkees were allowed limited roles in the recording studio for the first few months of their 5-year recording career. Remember, the show went from 66 to 68, but they kept recording. This is due mainly because they were working 12-hour days on the show. I don't know. They made hundreds and hundreds of Monkee shows. They would do backup vocals on their own and lead vocals, but often not any of the instruments, although Torque and Nesmith were studio quality musicians. Dolenz described the Monkees as being, quote, a TV show about an imaginary band that wanted to be the Beatles that was never successful. So look at the irony here. These guys play an imaginary band that wants to be successful, and talking about meta, they end up selling 75 million albums, and they're one of the biggest bands of all time, let alone the 60s. Their hits, like Last Train to Clarksville, I'm a Believer, which is a Neil Diamond song, Pleasant Valley Sunday, Daydream Believer. Like, it's like, pretending to be a doctor in a show and you become a doctor. This doesn't really happen in real life, but it happened. So it was a show about a pop group that's transmuted itself into reality. This is also important. You don't think about it this way, but the names of the characters in the show were the real names of the performers. That's weird for TV. Hard Day's Night and Help had the Beatles' names. You couldn't change it. It was Paul McCartney. You couldn't call him anything, Dave or something. But this was like the Brady Bunch having the real names of the Brady Bunch actors. It doesn't make any sense. But it was a mark of genius in making these guys famous. So they were called Mickey and Mike and whoever, Davey. And that worked out for them. So, by the way, speaking about precedent, there was a guy before them named Rick Nelson. Some of you might know Ricky Nelson, who was a big influence in country rock. Rick Nelson got his start acting on Ozzie and Harriet. You might have heard the show from the 50s. He's a good-looking kid, and he sang some songs. He had a nice voice. He recorded it with professional musicians, and voila, he became a huge singing star that even Bob Dylan admired. And early on, one of the members of Ricky Nelson's band was a member, to become rather a member of the Eagles. So no Ricky Nelson, no Eagles. You see how all this is tied in. All of this is just organic, and it all works. So Ricky Nelson, was he legitimate because he started singing songs on TV and became a star, a team idol? No, I think so. So wait a second. I also hear some music coming through the boards again, and I think it's bugging me, man. We're going to have to do something about it.
And now, Yes or No with Ferris Kennedy, the segment where the sick, drug-addled mind of Mr. Kennedy forcibly asks Dr. Clarke and medicated Wheeler yes or no questions about classic rock, and you get to hear the sick, drug-addled answers.
Makes my
All right, gentlemen, so who wants to be tortured first today?
I think this fellow does, not me.
All right, well, Wheeler, you're going to be tortured first.
Oh, Lord.
So here we go. Now, I kind of I dug into my repertoire and I dug into your brains of stuff that you guys like and things you should know. So here we go.
Okay.
I'm going to be
Wheeler?
humiliated.
The album On an Island was released by Pink Floyd member Nick Mason.
True?
No, it's
No,
David Gilmour. Wheeler.
You fool.
Oh, Lord.
Pearl Jam recorded their first studio album, which is called 10, at the Robert Lang Studios in Seattle.
I want to say true?
No.
No?
It's the
Jeez.
London Bridge Studio.
Oh, what a sneak.
Oh, Lord.
So, speaking of the London Bridge
There
Studio,
you go.
Mother Love Bone, Alice in Chains, and Nickelback all recorded at the London Bridge Studios.
It just sounds so bizarre that I'm going to say true.
It is. Nickelback actually did record in Seattle.
Was that before they were famous or after they were famous?
I think, well, they started off in 96, so it'd have to be in the 90s.
Yeah, okay.
Elton John's birth name is Reginald Kenneth Dwight.
True.
All right. Eric Clapton got his initial fame with Cream.
True.
No, it's the Yardbirds.
Oh, wait, Cream came out. Oh, yeah, you're right.
I know I'm right. I wrote the questions. I did my research. When David Lee Roth returned to Van Halen, the fan base was excited.
Depends on whose fan base. I'm going to say some of them were, but I'm guessing a lot of people were pissed.
No, the
No?
answer, they were.
They were, okay.
Yes, they were. And in 2001, the Foo Fighters established a relationship with Queen because Grohl and Taylor Hawkins were fans of that band. Yes or no?
Yes.
That is correct. Dr. Clarke.
How may I help you?
Well, let me sip a coffee before I read to you
I'm
because
sipping
this is
smoke
gonna,
a Java blend
this is
here.
going to really turn your stomach.
Put that latex glove on.
George
coffee.
Harrison's favorite Beatle album was the White Album. Yes or no?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm going to say yes.
And it was actually Rubber Soul.
Really?
Yeah.
That little...
In 1985, Daryl Hall of Hall & Oates was offered the position of lead vocalist, but he declined it.
Of who?
Van Halen.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, I have it in the book.
In 85.
85, when Roth left, Daryl
That
Hall...
doesn't make any sense,
well,
does it?
I have it.
Imagine that guy singing, might as well jump. No. Out the window. No, I hard to... That's a really cool piece of trivia.
I'll show you after the
Yeah.
show. Okay. AC/DC has had 3 all-time drummers.
Yeah.
It's 12.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
I thought it was 8.
12.
No,
Yeah.
they've had 12. What was the you said all time?
All-time, they've had 3. I said 3, but the answer is 12. They had 12 all-time drummers.
I mean, 12 guys have worked with them over the years.
Yeah. But the ones that are the ones that we know the most are Phil Rudd and Chris Slade.
Yeah, I'm going to say
Yeah.
there's studio guys, and there's guys that go on tour.
But Slade, they carry 2 drummers now, just in case Rudd gets another legal issue.
One dies?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, one in jail.
All right. The guitar singing musician who's referred to as God by band members was Neil Young.
No.
You know who it is?
Yeah, I know who it is. Well, Eric Clapton
There
was
you
referred
go.
to as God, but
And Aerosmith released their first album in 1973.
boy, that's a tough one. The first album in 73.
You know this answer, sir.
I'm going to say, gee, that sounds a little late. I'm going to say, I don't know the year, though, specifically. I'm going to say yes, but it doesn't feel right.
But what are you going with, sir? Yes? No?
Yeah.
It
Yes.
was actually 72. You're
Yeah. Okay.
You know, I was told by my spouse to kind of try to make them a little bit more difficult for you guys, so
Yeah.
I think I did pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
that AC/DC question makes them sound like Spinal Tap, like they're blowing up their drummers. kind of
Listen, when I
situation.
read that, when I was doing the research and getting some questions to kind of mix it up with you guys, obviously I mostly throw you more Beatles stuff because I know that's your thing,
Yeah.
and obviously Wheels, I give you the more Floyd stuff. Yeah, when I read that, I'm like, you got to be kidding me, 12, because I always know just of Chris Slade and Phil Rudd,
Yeah.
because Slade did a couple albums, he filled in for Rudd. They're both decent drummers. I prefer Rudd over Slade. That's just the way it is. But yeah, it was.
I didn't. Well, the one that blew me, Daryl Hall. Imagine approaching. Yeah, would you like to become lead singer? He kind of has a career going. He does not. How would that help him? I mean, it doesn't fit. They're a much heavier band. All I know is with this Blue Eyed Soul band. What? It doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
When I read that,
really,
who's the one with the mustache? John Oates? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. Daryl Hall's the guy with the big fluffy.
Yeah, I like John Oates better.
Yeah.
I always thought he was like Spanish or something.
I don't know. What do you? Oh, with the mustache.
Yeah, well, because he was always tanned.
Yeah.
True,
I don't know where he's from.
I thought he was. He looked Italian, actually. I thought he was Italian. But I'm like, Oates doesn't sound too Italian to me.
Then you try to imagine what's the Italian name that's changed to
Well,
Oates.
unless his mom was Italian,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, this,
Maybe he lost his mustache and wrote a book about it or something. It defined him. It was with this kind of handlebar
but
thing.
it's his trademark.
Exactly.
I know,
There's certain guys that still need to keep it. You know, do like a sidebar. Like you Tom Selleck needs the mustache.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does.
You know what I mean? He can't have the mustache.
Freddie Mercury needed the mustache.
Oh,
Without
Lord.
it,
Yeah,
he
it
had
actually
no power.
it suited him. It suited him better.
It did. He looked better with the
He
mustache.
looked more like a.
Or it's
more,
like Sean Connery without chest hair. It just doesn't
Ooh,
work.
that wouldn't work. No, he had like fistfuls of hair.
Or it's like
Shag
Roger
carpeting.
Moore always had to be clean shaven.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
he always was. And when he didn't in disguise, he looked like a fool. Whereas Connery, check out the movie Zardoz someday.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my, there's buckets of hair
Hair.
hanging off him.
But then, you know, certain actors, Anthony Quinn, for years, I thought he was Italian. My father thought he was Greek.
I know.
He's from Mexico.
I know, he's Mexican. I know. He
The
did all these roles.
international man of mystery.
But that's the thing. This is what I like about certain musicians. You're right. Freddie Mercury did need the mustache. He had to have the mustache.
He had to.
You know,
It just worked.
John Oates had to have the mustache.
Yeah, it's true.
And kind of George Michael, I kind of liked him with the beard.
I don't know.
Give
Yeah, I
him
guess
style.
so.
It's me because it was the late '80s. He started
Yeah.
going more solo.
Yeah.
He was kind of like the pretty boy look was kind of moving over to like
Yeah, maybe you're right. You
yeah.
got a little older. Yeah,
so,
okay.
That's it. That's my yes or no.
Okay, man, I'm going to continue
Nice.
here. I got another trivia moment. Stephen Stills and Neil Young both play guitar on several Monkees tracks. I mentioned that for the legitimacy of the band. Next step. Which classic rock bands were assembled by producers or labels? With that question, we're going to get in within throwing distance of the Monkees, who admittedly were put together by TV producers, not music producers, but really, these guys are pretty well, you know, these are kin. They're sleeping together. So we have most of the Motown groups were put together by a producer. If they're classic rock, which apparently they are according to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Box Tops, right, Alex Chilton, the Runaways, to make this more of a modern list, Sex Pistols, and perhaps the biggest prefab of them all, the Beatles, was put together partially by a producer and a manager, right? George Martin, more or less, had Brian Epstein fire Pete Best and bring in Ringo. So they made the Beatles.
They could have went with John Hutchison, by the way.
Yeah, they could have Johnny Hutch.
I'm always going to throw that in there.
You don't have to. It's your knockout piece of trivia. So let's continue
Or Jeff Lynne in some way, shape, or form.
for the White Album, which
But he did.
which is not George Harrison's favorite album, by the way.
Just so you know, by the way, that radio announcer that did say that, and I said, oh, he ended up getting let go. You're like, well, I see you serves him right. They just brought him back. He's back to the 9. He's doing the 9 to noon stuff. So.
But they're saying you'll never talk about the Beatles again. And you actually thought Jeff Lynne, who
That's where I got my info from. I didn't make that stuff up.
but you know in your gut. You just know in your gut. Jeff Lynne, excuse me, we'll record while my guitar. Can I have some more reverb, George? No, shut up. More reverb. He's a nobody.
But he was on wasn't he on the recording with that for that?
No, he was with a band called, I don't know if he's with The Move,
He was with
Bevan and The Move
And then
at that time, but he had nothing to do with the Beatles. Maybe they were in the same studio one day and then they
he was
asked him.
probably walking by, going to the bathroom. And, oh, hey, you guys recording? I'll just push this.
I'll just sing back up while my guitar. You know.
It's a good song, though.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue with the case for the defense. So we have 4 actors, 2 of whom are studio musicians, and the other 2 have great voices. The good pop band, as I said, not rock, pop. So why the resentment? Why the pre-fab label when there's so much pre-fab in all areas of entertainment today? Well, stay tuned for our second podcast, part 2 of the... I'm kidding. No, I'll answer that. Let's look at a quote from Mike Nesmith. Quote, everybody in the press and the hippie movement had got us into their target window as being illegitimate and not worthy of consideration as a musical force. We were under siege. We were constantly mocked and humiliated. We were getting beat up pretty good. So, and he said it lingers to this day among people of my own age. Interesting. And the reason I think it's not complicated, the Monkees' success exposed some of the darker shadows of 1960 recording industry, just how stars are made. In fact, it still exists, and no one cares anymore, though, today. In fact, people are proud to skip the line, right? And stuff with like America's Most Talented, or Someone's Got Talent, or all this X Factor crap. It's just Insta-stars. You just add water, right? And we wouldn't even notice the Monkees anymore for being put together by a TV producer. Power to them. But back then, there was a kind of a jealousy that they didn't pay their dues, right? They didn't play little clubs and all the rest of it. Phil Spector said at the time, quote, it's as if someone said, I'm going to make you a big star. You don't have to pay dues, and for that, you're going to get no respect from your contemporaries. And that was the cruelest thing, unquote. So, folks, I hope that I laid down at least a small line of defense toward making the Monkees accepted as a legitimate pop band. Anyway, they survived the most unforgiving test of all, which is the test of time. So in closing, in the fun-loving spirit of the Monkees, I'm going to repeat, here we come, walking down the street. We get the funniest looks from everyone we meet. Hey, we're the Monkees. And people say we monkey around, but we're too busy singing to put anybody down. We go wherever we want to. We do what we like to do. We don't have time to get restless. There's always something new. Hey, we're the Monkees. We're just trying to be friendly. Come and watch us sing and play. We're the young generation, and we've got something to say. Anytime, anywhere, look over your shoulder. Guess who'll be standing there? We're the Monkees. Over and out.
Although, a little bit of trivia, they did a movie, and Jack Nicholson was involved in that movie, wasn't he?
They did a movie called Head, and that's right. Jack helped write it. Yeah, Jack Nicholson was a buddy of Bob Rafelson, and he wrote the movie Head, which is actually not a bad movie. If it's very trippy, but everyone's in it. Victor Mature, you might know that actor. I think Jack's in there for a while. Frank Zappa's in there. It's a strange movie, but Carole King wrote some songs for it. 1968.
Yeah, it's the ultimate 60s movie.
But they forgot to mention about the Monkees in their slogan. Said, by the way, Davey Jones going to get all the women.
He was like 5'1". I think he was as cute as a bug.
Well, that was my mom always said. She goes, well, that was my boyfriend when I was growing up. I'm like, you actually knew Davey Jones? She goes, well, not personally. She said, but,
he was on my lunchbox.
Kissed his picture, yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, my dad says back in the day, Dana Ross from the Supremes, he said that she was gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And mom thought that Cassidy was actually a good-looking dude.
Yeah, good-looking guy.
And Davey Jones was another one. So it's funny when you talk to your parents about these things because they were in that era.
Yeah.
And, obviously you're slightly younger than my parents by quite a few years.
But my older sister loved the Monkees, and she brought home their first album, and I played it till I wore it out. Of course, back then the tone arms weighed about 3 or 4 pounds, so basically it was a lathe. But I love the Monkees. And
that was the heartthrobs, right? But then you come the Wheels and I generation. You got Sebastian Bach, Vince Neil, Bret Michaels, David Lee Roth. Who's the other one that I had mentioned? Another metalhead there.
Yeah,
did I say Bret Michaels?
Super spreaders for STDs. I mean, come on.
Axl Rose is another one. So.
Plus, these guys were responsible for the hole in the ozone layer just with the air product.
But the only one I'll give credit to that still looks great for his age is Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden. He's still in shape. And,
That's probably because he was never a heartthrob.
Yeah, really. Well, he was a decent looking
guy. No, he was always a good looking guy. It's just... He didn't do it for teenage girls.
Oh, Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi, the ultimate.
Yeah, you're right.
He cleaned up. He looks like a business executive now. I saw him he's in a suit with short hair.
But the gray suits him well.
Yeah, I mean, he got older, and I'll talk about that in an upcoming podcast, by the way, people. How to age gracefully or not as a rock star.
Well, Sebastian Bach did not age gracefully.
Alice Cooper is now actually terrifying.
He went from like the dangerous guy to the guy on the Gilmore Girls, which tells you something about his career arch.
Really.
Oh, Sebastian Bach.
Sebastian Bach.
I keep on mixing him up with.
Where's he from again?
Peterborough.
Oh, yes, Peterborough, Ontario.
And his brother was the hockey player or baseball player? No, what was his brother? His brother.
John Sebastian Bach.
I thought he was a musician.
So, you hear anything else?
Oh, what is that?
Like a needle on a really old piece of plastic.
Oh, hello.
The music at night, it sounds bright on Wheeler's turntable. He shines a light, he keeps his vinyl in sight, and gives you his magnificent review. Now here's a clue we have for you. It's time for Wheeler's Vinyl Review.
So today, to go with the monkey, I took the zombie. So we're going to talk about Zombies, Oddities, and Extra, which is a new record that just came out, which is a really amazing compilation of B-sides, A-sides, studio outtakes, demos, and radio broadcasts.
No rarities?
Well, they are rarities.
No, but they always have that. They always
Yeah, true.
Rarity, B-sides and rarities. No one cares.
Well, it's the zombies, so rarities are oddities, I'm guessing.
They're all rarities.
So basically, for you fans of the zombies out there, like the people that are the devotees of the zombies, I'm not necessarily recommending this because a few years ago, there was a 4 CD box set called Zombie Heaven, which is a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, really.
That came out, and they were all on this, and they sound amazing because they were all either remastered or in high resolution format, which makes me wonder why it's not on Blu-ray disc. Although Blu-ray as an audio format is probably, if not dead, or on its way out.
Wow, frig, it's almost like obsolete, these things, you know?
Exactly. So, but they sound great. But I have to say, for those of you who have a passing knowledge of the zombies, this is a really fun compilation because if you think about it, 4 CDs, that's a lot of stuff.
That's amazing. I didn't know they did that much
That's
stuff.
8 vinyls.
Yeah, really. Is that
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
So
Elton John did a 3. Sorry, Wheels, but Elton John did like a 3 vinyl set of blue, red, and green. It's like 8 vinyls each.
Well, he's
yeah,
been
so
around since 1952 or something, Elton John. So yeah.
So what they did was basically, instead of doing one of these huge box sets, because they know they have brand recognition, but not Elton John recognition.
Yeah, not Elton John level.
So they bring it back to one record. So they really took the best of the best.
Yeah.
And
Odyssey and Oracle.
Exactly.
We got that right.
And it came out actually for Record Store Day. So there will be
interesting.
2 editions that you'll see on the market. There's the black record edition, which you can find at a reasonable price. And then there's the Record Store Day editions that are, I can't remember which color, but usually those go
red
for
or white or clear.
Exactly.
Yeah, usually that's what they do.
But it's a really great sounding record, not only for the songs, but because producer Andrew Sandoval really took his time to find the best sounding cuts, and he actually wrote linear notes that are amazingly detailed, significant, and essential. So I highly recommend this to Zombie Heaven fans even. The only thing for the purists out there, it's not from analog tapes, it's from remastered HD files. Let's face it though, most people don't have the equipment to really perceive a huge difference for recordings of this era. But I have heard chatter online that people would really want to have the mono versions of these. The original release, because these guys actually outsold the Beatles, I think, at one point for 3 months or something like that.
Probably 6. I don't know when that would be.
On vinyl? Would it be they're going to put it on vinyl?
Oh yeah, no, mono on vinyl.
Why would they do that? Why would they take vinyl, put it on HD? Why wouldn't they just go back to the vinyl? Or is it too expensive? Or
no, it's the master tapes usually. The problem is the tapes are usually in really shitty condition.
I like what you said. They're usually in really shitty condition. This is a guy that has a reel-to-reel in his bedroom, for crying out loud.
That's cool though. That's retro funky.
Oh, the women kind of like it, right? Women?
Exactly, yeah.
Some Barry White. Click.
He's like, here's my reel-to-reel.
So I'm not saying if you're a really big purist to wait for the mono, because there's actually no way of knowing if they're ever going to release it. But it did work for the Beatles to a certain extent. They're not huge sellers, but if you have the turntable for it, if you have the needle for it, go for it. Right. So Zombies, Oddities, and Extra, if you're in the mood for just a nice rock that won't rock the boat too much.
They had some great songs,
exactly.
Right? It's funny, they had this album in '68 that came out, and then they broke up. And one of the guys went back and worked in an office or something, and then it became this, the top 50 album, one of those things. And it's an incredible album, Odyssey and Oracle, and then they relaunched their career. Imagine getting a phone call and say, yeah, by the way, that album is number 1. And we got to go back together again.
Well, it was Rod Argent and what's the other guy?
Colin Bluestone?
Yeah. One of them left after time of the season or that.
Yeah.
And then I guess they called him back and said, listen, you want to...
I think they all broke up. Argent went to form the band, obviously. Yeah. Argent. Hold Your Head Up, that song. And then the Zombies became this classic rock culty band, and they got back together with the most ridiculous name. I always said this in previous podcasts. This is the Zombies. It has nothing to do with what they... I mean, they're not kind of a goth thing. They're a pop band from the 60s with 2.5-minute songs.
I put them in the same category as the Tokens.
The Tokens?
In terms of name or song? Sound?
The Tokens were more of a...
The Lion Sleeps at Night.
Yeah.
Just kind of that era.
Okay, yeah.
Because, or maybe the Turtles, but a little heavier than the Turtles.
The Tokens, were more of a vocal. But I would put them... They're up there with...
the Nylons.
Oh, Lord. The cringe on his face. Oh, Lord.
Are they from Toronto by any chance? They are okay. I know they were Canadian.
Ooh, the gag reflex just acted up.
The Les Nylons in French. What a stupid name. I'm sorry.
I won't even go there. That's enough for today, I think, ladies and gentlemen. We got out legally. Let's just cut it.
Oh, that was funny. But no, that's what I compare them to, like the Tokens, like, that 60s sound, the Turtles.
The zombie turtles, that would be a nice double bill.
That sounds like a movie.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's just the way I see it.
Well, you're a damn fool.
Or the box tops. You can boom with the box tops. My baby wrote me a letter.
I guess. The guy was 17, recorded that.
It sounded like he was in his mid-30s.
He sounded like he was 80 after 5 Pall Malls.
Yeah.
My baby wrote me a letter.
I was waiting to go,
yeah. I don't care how much money I got.
Gotta get my baby. Only days ago, I'm going home. My baby wrote me a letter.
And that's it for today, ladies and germs. What else can we say?
All right, well, let's all sign off.
Stephen Wheeler.
Dr. Clarke.
Ferris Kennedy. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.